So this week, Donald Trump has been really ramping up his attacks against America, and a lot of people are pushing back. I want to go over what's going on, what's the latest, and let's just jump right in. So first, this is in Chicago, where ICE agents were trying to arrest a person on a bicycle. And if you haven't seen this, you got to see it. It's absolutely crazy.
Get him! Watch out! Watch out!
Isn't that like the wildest thing you've ever seen? And someone in our community said that they asked a friend who works in law enforcement, what they thought about some of the stuff we're seeing with ICE. And from their opinion, again, someone in law enforcement was saying it looks like you have a few sort of regular ICE people and then a bunch of, part-time amateur kind of people. And I mean, it's effectively kind of what you're seeing here. I don't know how to put it. Why are we chasing after someone on a bicycle? Are they threatening in some way? I mean, it's like it's so weird. And then you got the situation in Portland, and I want to show you a little bit of what people are saying about that. Let's watch this.
Been able to watch that tortured and courage that is our governor as she speaks to President Trump.
And that's the mayor of Portland with the governor of Portland.
And she's giving him leadership lessons, which is what we need so badly right now. She says, Mr. Trump, troops are for those to protect us from our foreign enemies, not Portland, Oregon.
Right, and so as the mayor is saying, troops are to protect us from foreign enemies, not Portland, Oregon. And one of the things that I also want to mention, whenever I see people on the Democrat side or in various cities, you can always see the crowd is very diverse, right? That's America. Now, Trump wants a different type of America, of course. I'm sure you guys know which type that is. But when you watch the Fox News stuff, they basically clown themselves on a daily basis. So listen to what they say is the real problem.
Portland is a mess. You guys are responsible. And when help comes out, you're going to make the bad guys the federal agents, but they're sending 200 National Guards to take over Portland. Portland is now suing back. But these protesters with their nose rings and purple hair are causing havoc in front of federal buildings. That is the reason you call them the National Guard. And you're a national joke. Nobody wants to live there anymore. Nobody works there anymore. The president's there to help. I just hope the administration does a good job letting everybody know what their objective is. It's not to hurt Democrats. It's to help a city.
All right, so I guess no one wants to live in Portland anymore. It's awful there. No one works there. And then he's even like, yeah, and it's your nose rings and purple hair. And so, and whenever I go through this stuff with you guys, I just want you to see the contrasting sides, especially for people who are outside the USA. You can see it on the Trumpies and stuff like that. They're always angry all the time. And you guys see this stuff, right? And complaining about purple hair and nose rings, for reals. And it's sad because I can see what's going on, and that's what I point out with you, because essentially what it is Trump trying to get us all to fight each other. So this is a good example. This is in Portland. Check out the headline. It says, 2 arrested for assault during protests outside Portland ICE facility. And if you were just to read the headline, you're like, oh, okay, is Trump right? Are the protesters getting out of control? What's going on? Is there some sort of assault? And then when you read the details, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Trump is dividing people. So here's what it says. It says, as the night went on, police said they did witness some physical altercations between opposing protesters. Okay, so this is not between the ICE and the protesters, between 2 different groups of protesters. So maybe one pro-Trump, one not for Trump, right? Basically against Trump, I want to say anti-Trump. And it was around 9:30. They arrested a 17-year-old, so a kid, for 4th-degree assault. The teen was photographed and fingerprinted before being released back to Guardian, police said. A short while later, officials said they also arrested a 38-year-old man for 3rd-degree assault. So again, they're describing it as being fights between protesters, which I can totally see happening. And the issue is, as I keep mentioning, Trump wants to divide everyone. From Trump's and other billionaires' point of view, they want you, the worker, to get mad and angry at other workers. And so while all the workers are fighting, then the billionaires are just laughing at you. That's basically what it ends up being. And I got to point this stuff out because a lot of people fall for this stuff. Here's something else that a lot of people fall for. For Trump's, his fans, his MAGA people, they're always like, oh, yeah, get rid of all the black and brown people and arrest everybody. Yeah, that's their point of view, and they're cheering that stuff on, right? And so while Trump has all the federal agents focusing on immigration, then they're not enforcing other things. So for example, this was in Reuters here. Exclusive federal drug prosecutions fall to the lowest level in decades as Trump shift focus to deportations, right? So remember, Trump is blowing up boats in Venezuela, trying to start a war down there. And Trump always says, oh, I'm going to be tough on crime, etc. So he's going after delivery drivers and farm workers, stuff like that, deportations, and then they're not going after other things. And the one thing I've been telling you, which is always the same, is follow the money. So what else are they not cracking down on? So the Trump people are not going after money laundering. It says right here, the pullback was more dramatic for the types of conspiracy and money laundering cases often used to pursue high-level traffickers. The number of people charged with money laundering dropped by 24%, right? So these kind of things. So you go after some stuff, right? So Trump's interested in delivery drivers and trying to get Americans just fighting each other, and then you're not enforcing other things. That's sort of what's going on there. And then you also have this, and I know a lot of people skip over the money stuff, but I always tell you the same thing, guys, is don't ignore the money. I'm serious, because if you're an American and you're concerned about jobs and inflation and all the things that are happening in the economy, which most people are, and then the Trump strategy is like just blame the black and brown people. That's basically what it ends up being. And I've been noticing the more racist rhetoric coming from the White House. It's obvious. When in doubt, get your base to get all riled up and say a bunch of racist stuff. Essentially what Trump people does. And it's hard to communicate this stuff, because from the MAGA people, like if you're really in that world, that's all that you see. And so stuff that I say, they won't even listen to me anyway, because I don't look the right way. Let's be honest, I'm telling the truth about this stuff. And even on YouTube, most of the popular YouTubers all look a certain way, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to touch that stuff, because you guys know how it is in USA. People don't like to hear the truth on this. It's frustrating. But I just try to tell you the best. Focus on the money. And at the moment, Trump is trying to deregulate as much as he possibly can. Also, it was interesting, the Washington Post did an interview with several MAGA people who are disappointed, disillusioned that Trump isn't fulfilling his promises. Surprise, surprise. But the things that they say really capture sort of the world that they're in. And for those of you who have MAGA people in your life, you'll probably have these similar experiences. So I'll show you, I'll go over it. It says, is Trump keeping all his promises? This MAGA couple doesn't think so. And here's some quotes here. First, it says, Jessie Meadows told her mother-in-law not to panic, right? When business slowed at the family flower shop last year. They just needed to hold on a little longer until Donald Trump got back in office, right? So every day they're just dreaming and hoping that their savior is going to come for them, right? She's still waiting for the turnaround, and honestly, it feels like for a lot of these people that they're waiting for the second coming. It just seems like that kind of thing. They're still waiting. And this is a more description. It says, Carter, 37, who runs the local funeral home, also voted for Trump last year, believing he would be good for the economy. Okay, that's their point of view. Now, tariffs are pushing up prices for one of his suppliers, right? Got to pay more tax. And Carter isn't sure how long he can hold off raising his own rates. Tariffs, he said, quote, seemed unplanned and childish, right? This is when the reality of Trump's policies hit you. You're just like, it's just the reality, right? Unplanned and childish. And this is what else they say, though. It captures it. I'm not an economist. Probably going to get hurt before it gets better, okay? But we also really don't have a suggestion on how to fix that. We don't understand enough about it, okay? When I read through this, it just really captures the MAGA people. They're really, really hoping Trump's going to turn stuff around. They see Trump's policy as terrible, right? They even use the words unplanned and childish. But then they'll go like, well, but I don't really understand stuff, and I guess at the end of the day, I have to trust Trump. And it's like, how do you get through to these people? And that's sort of why I try to talk to you guys just on a daily basis, like a regular human being. I know, and often on YouTube, to get attention, you have to like wave your arms around and scream and kick and yell. And some people like that stuff, and it ends up just being entertainment. But I just want to tell you the truth about these things. If you want to hear what the White House says, because I go through everything, this is from the White House point of view. They say, just as it did in the first term, once President Trump's economic agenda takes full effect, the unprecedented investments, and they claim that all this money's coming in. That's what the Trump people claim. They claim they're all getting rich. All this money's coming in. Historic tax cuts, right? For the rich people, but they don't tell you that part. Massive deregulation, as if getting rid of the cops on Wall Street is going to help you, right? I mean, this is their language. And energy dominance will fuel an economic boom, right? So they always tell you how rich everyone's going to be, etc. And then it becomes like for the MAGA people, they'll say, well, it hasn't happened yet, because they can see their own bank accounts, and then they're just like, I don't really understand it, but I guess I have to trust Trump. And it is a weird culture that we live in when you have to deal with these kind of people. And again, people in your life who are like this, I'm sure you know. This is what Trump says then about Portland. Trump saying, you go out to Portland, people die out there. Many people have died over the years in Portland. I grew up in Portland, that's my hometown. So it's just funny to read this stuff. Portland is, I don't know how anyone lives there. It's amazing, right? How does anyone live in Portland? How could they possibly live around the parks and the ocean and the mountains? I mean, how awful could it be? But it's anarchy out there, and that's what they want. So, and if you live in the middle of the USA, and if you've never traveled to other states, you just, I guess, believe the stuff that you see on Fox News. You think it's just a wasteland everywhere else. And I hate to break it to you, and I just want to tell you the truth on this stuff. Hop in the car if you can, go visit other states, get out and get away from Fox News, and you'll realize, wow, purple hair and nose rings, that's not your worst problem in the world. Being honest with you guys. And you'll realize, there's a reason why on one side be the Trumpers and the Fox, they're just angry all the time. And the other side, you'll see a lot more diversity and just a lot more smiles, and it's just a lot different. It's really, really different. And I've lived in several states in USA. I can attest firsthand. It's really, really different. And I know a lot of people are struggling. And I'm also honest with you. I know the economy's tough. I know prices are through the roof. I know that housing is expensive. I know all these things. I know it's hard to get a job out there. That's why I talk to you like a real person. Where Trump's, if you literally just read their words, it's just like, what planet are they on, and who are they trying to fool? And I guess MAGA people, but how long can you possibly fool people? And then you have this, U.S. set for largest mass resignation in history as Trump continues deep cuts. So I guess word in the street, possibly 100,000 federal workers will resign to be the largest in history. And this is, I mean, it's just what's going on. I mean, and for those of you who work in the government, because a lot of people watch the channel work in the government, or work in the military, you guys have probably heard about the stuff coming down the pipeline and that possible shutdown, and Trump and that meeting with the generals. I mean, I'll just say this, to me it's obvious that Trump's trying to burn down the country. For what reason, who knows, other than put money in his pocket. And anyone who supports him is, I think, frankly crazy. I'll just be honest with you guys. I mean, you read this stuff. The Trump administration is set to oversee the largest mass resignation in U.S. history on Tuesday, with more than 100,000 federal workers set to formally quit as part of the latest wave of deferred resignation program. And then you got Trump this, I guess they had a lawsuit against YouTube. Trump was mad that his account got banned or whatever. And they're going to use, the settlements for $24.5 billion, and I guess $22 million of that is going to go to the construction of the new ballroom. And it's interesting because before, when Trump claimed that, he and his buddies are going to pay for the ballroom and whatever, I guess what it ends up being is Trump's going to sue people to pay for the ballroom. It's ridiculous as stuff sounds. I mean, it's just, how can we even talk about this in a serious way? Because this is like the most ridiculous news out there, right? I mean, everything's ridiculous with Trump. But yeah, I guess we're suing companies to pay for the ballroom. And this is a touchy subject these days, being what can be on social media, because Trump, he likes to lie, right? So just recently he put out the AI video. It was just a big lie about this whole medbed thing, about this, I guess, supposed technology that the government is keeping from you that can make your arms grow back and such. No, for real, and cure cancer. And it's like, what? But that's something that on YouTube, and if you guys haven't noticed lately, there's a lot of AI slop out there, promoting all kinds of nonsense. And also, I'll tell you the truth in this one, and people get upset with the truth, but it is the truth. There are some left-leaning channels that, maybe politically I agree with them, but they put out a bunch of AI, thumbnails, images, etc., that are basically lies. And I feel, I don't condone any of that kind of stuff. So I think there definitely needs to be, some sort of regulations or crackdown on stuff in the future. And the proliferation of lies, this post-truth era, is not a good thing under Trump. So from Trump's point of view, though, that's freedom of speech. I can, and I'll give you an example. Elon Musk's point of view would be, hey, I can falsely advertise my products, and that's freedom of speech, right? That's the world that the Trumpers and the Musk want to go through. Me personally, if I see an advertising for a product I don't want people to lie to me. I want that to be illegal. I don't want companies to be able to claim things that they, you know, that they're showing you that's just simply not true. And so this is why you want regulations to protect the consumer. I think it's fairly obvious, but the way the Trumpers, you know, phrase these things, they try to act like, oh, we're going to get the economy going if we deregulate stuff. Shutdown looks to be much closer than before. I think we're maybe around 24 hours out from that. We'll keep tracking this stuff. Trump claims he's a deal maker. I don't see any deal on this stuff, and the Democrats are essentially trying to fight for health care. That's what's going on. I do want to give you a different point of view that you probably won't hear in the USA. So while the, you know, Trump's trying to divide Americans and they're fighting over whether or not the government's going to stay open, in Korea it's a very different fight. They're fighting over whether or not we should shorten the work week. Seriously, that's the discussion. So this was back in May. The headline was "Work-Life Balance or Economic Risk? Korea Debates 4.5-day work week ahead of the election." And this question I pose to you as just a regular worker, how would you like to have either 4.5-day work or even just a 4-day work week? Would you prefer that? And in fact, it's under debate continuing. This is now in September, and this is a headline here. Korea's 4.5-day work week plan stirs business backlash. So the current president, President Lee, is more, say, like this U.S. equivalent would be like more left-leaning Democrat type. And then the opposition party is basically, and I'm being frank with you guys, it was President Yoon who got arrested and impeached. Basically, a lot of his followers are cult, like a religious cult, and you can look this stuff up. It's the Unification Church. It's similar to MAGA. You could argue worse. I mean, it really is religious cult stuff. They were taking bribes from the church. It's crazy, but they're also more pro-business, anti-worker. And so, from some point of view, and I get the business point of view, is like, I don't want my workers to have any time off. I want them to keep working. But point being, though, this is the debates we're having in Korea, actually, is how can we make workers' lives better? And when you get out of, say, the U.S. context of politics and see what other countries are debating, you realize like how bad Trump is. Like it's like so off base. In other parts of the world, they don't really fight over making healthcare affordable. That's just an untouchable thing. It's like, okay, we decided as a society we want healthcare and education, and let's now we're talking about whether or not we want 4.5-day work weeks, because the ultimate goal, I guess, the current president in Korea, Lee, is like we should go to 4-day work week because it makes everything better. Be it people have more kids, people have more happiness, and they end up being more productive. So that's the basic argument for that. And I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on that one, if Americans would go for that or not. Because if you go to the Trump point of view, he's always saying, I want you to work more overtime, and I want you to have jobs that have tips, right? No, seriously, that's like, see, Trump's plan. Trump's no tax on overtime is now U.S. law. Some Americans don't even qualify to catch. And I see J.D. Vance giving speeches, time to time. Hey, if you want to work overtime, you can be really, really rich. And it's like, I don't want to work overtime. Do you want to work overtime? And that's why I said you contrast it with what's happening in Korea. They're debating 4-day work week. So it's a different world out there. And my point of view is tell you guys the truth, give you a global perspective, and know that there's other ways to do things other than the Trumpy way. There's other ways. You don't have to go down that Trumpy, path where everyone's divided all the time and angry nonstop. There are other ways to live. So that's my point of view on this stuff. I'd like to hear yours, and I'll catch you on the next video.